A storm slammed into Asheville. Logan, a worn-out veteran, raced through the woods with his German Shepherd, Ranger, desperate for shelter. Through the roaring wind, Ranger suddenly stopped, barking toward a rusted iron gate swallowed by vines, the entrance to an abandoned railway tunnel. Logan stepped inside to escape the storm, but Ranger moved deeper, fur bristling, sensing something beyond darkness. He picked up a faint, steady vibration, like the heartbeat of a system still alive underground. Why would a trained rescue dog react so sharply? And did Logan truly find shelter? Or unlock a long-buried secret? Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country below, and don't forget to subscribe. The winter storm rolled across the Blue Ridge foothills with a cold, deliberate rage, pushing sheets of rain sideways through the trees and smearing the night into one endless, trembling blur. Fog crawled between the pines, brushing against the earth like fingers searching for something lost. Thunder rumbled above the ridgeline, slow, heavy, and far too familiar. Logan Hayes moved through the forest as if he were walking inside a memory he wished he could forget. He was in his mid-40s, tall but worn down, the way a flag still stands upright, even after too many battles with the wind. His shoulders carried a stiffness that had nothing to do with cold. His jaw was square, his beard short and uneven, and his eyes, pale gray, held the weary vigilance of someone who never fully stepped out of a war he'd survived only in body. Water plastered his dark blonde hair to his forehead. His coat, too thin for weather like this, clung to him heavily, the fabric drinking in the storm with merciless hunger. Every step he took through the mud was slower than the one before, yet he pushed on with the stubborn instinct of a man who had learned long ago that stopping was the same as surrendering. Beside him wove Ranger, a 6-year-old German Shepherd with a sable coat, thick enough to catch the glimmers of lightning. He moved with disciplined precision, head low, ears tall, body always between Logan and whatever the world might throw at them next. His amber gold eyes shimmered with intelligence and something gentler, devotion born from understanding pain without words. Ranger had once been trained for search and rescue before the program was cut. Logan adopted him after losing his last shelter. 2 casualties from different wars, stitched into the same fragile survival. A crack of thunder tore the sky, vibrating through the wet earth. Logan froze, his breath locked, his mind flared white. For a fraction of a second, the forest wasn't a forest. It was sand, smoke, sirens, screams swallowed by blast waves. His pulse spiked so sharply it hurt. He didn't hear the rain or the wind, only the echo of an explosion from a country he no longer lived in. Ranger touched his leg with a firm nudge, a grounding pressure that pulled him back. Logan exhaled shakily, rubbing a trembling hand down the dog's back. Ranger stayed close until Logan found his breath again. "It's okay," Logan whispered, though his voice barely carried. "I'm here. You're here." But the storm worsened. The trail he'd tried to follow had washed away behind him. He had been walking aimlessly for hours, ever since a volunteer shelter downtown turned him away because they'd reached capacity. They'd been kind about it, apologetic even. But kindness didn't stop the cold. Ranger suddenly lifted his head, nostrils flaring, his ears snapped forward, stiff with focus. "What is it, boy?" The dog didn't answer. He moved, quickly, quietly, purposefully. Logan followed, stumbling through low branches and wet underbrush. Ranger slowed at a narrow slope tangled with ivy and broken roots, sniffing intensely, tail lowered in a line of concentration. Then came the soft, urgent bark. Not fear, not warning. Discovery. Lightning flashed. For one instant, the forest lit up, and Logan saw it. A rusted iron gate, half swallowed by dirt and vines. Bent bars, broken hinges. A faded sign so weathered only the ghost of lettering remained. A tunnel entrance. Not a cave, not a shelter made by nature. A man-made railway maintenance tunnel, forgotten for decades, hidden by the forest reclaiming its space. Ranger nudged the gate with his nose until it groaned, metal scraping stone with a sound like a long, tired exhale. Logan stared, the cold gnawed at his bones. Rain soaked the collar of his coat. His hands shook too badly to form fists. Shelter was shelter, even if it was a hole in the world. "Let's take a look," he murmured. Ranger slipped through the gap first. Inside, the air changed. The storm faded into a dull whisper. The darkness wrapped around them, not as a threat, but like a thick blanket pulled over the noise of the world. Logan pulled a scratched flashlight from his pack and pressed the switch. The beam flickered to life, dim but steady. The curved walls glistened with damp streaks of mineral deposits. Old pipes ran along one side, thick ones at the top, thinner ones below, corroded with rust but still intact. Wooden ties strewn across the floor formed uneven steps into deeper shadow. Ranger didn't relax. He stood tense, ears forward, breath steady, tail rigid. Not out of fear, but alertness. His paws moved with precision, as if the air itself carried information. Then Logan heard it too, a faint vibration, soft, rhythmic, barely detectable. He angled the flashlight downward, not the ground, the pipes. The metal vibrated subtly, like the residual heartbeat of machinery long shut down, but never fully dead. "What the—" Ranger turned his head sharply, staring down the tunnel with an intensity that chilled Logan more than the rain ever could. This wasn't curiosity. This was instinct, deep, primal instinct, that told Ranger something inside this tunnel didn't belong to ordinary darkness. Logan took a slow step deeper. His boots splashed in shallow puddles. Ranger took the lead, but looked back every few strides, reassuring him, checking on him, as if aware of the memories that tried to drag Logan backward with every step forward. In the quiet, Logan's thoughts grew louder. Shadows on the wall made him flinch. The smell of old metal pulled forth a memory. Hospital tents, diesel generators humming into the night, the heavy scent of blood and antiseptic. For a moment, he wasn't in a tunnel. He was back in uniform, hands trembling as he tied a tourniquet on a friend whose eyes begged him not to lie about the odds. He swallowed hard. Ranger brushed against his leg, again, grounding him. Logan inhaled slowly until the memory loosened its claws. The tunnel sloped deeper, the floor dry in patches, the air oddly warmer than outside. Ranger paused suddenly, sniffed near the wall, and let out a low growl, not hostile but confused, like he sensed something layered beneath stone and metal. "What is it?" Logan whispered. Ranger lifted his head and stared at the darkness ahead. Then Logan felt it. A second vibration, different, deeper, alive. It came from somewhere far down the tunnel, a pulse that matched nothing mechanical he recognized. Not threatening, but persistent, like a living creature breathing slowly beneath the earth. Logan closed his eyes, letting the sensation pass through his awareness. It was faint, but it was real, and it stirred something inside him he hadn't felt in months. Curiosity. The smallest spark of purpose, as if the tunnel itself whispered, "Come see." But exhaustion settled in like a heavy cloak. He had been cold, hungry, and half-conscious for hours. This place, this forgotten artery carved through stone, felt strangely safe. Not warm, but no longer hostile, as if it accepted his presence the way the world above never did. He found a corner where the floor leveled out and lowered his pack. Ranger circled twice before lying beside him, head resting gently across Logan's boot, posture protective yet calm. Logan leaned against the wall, exhaling. Just one night, he whispered more to himself than to Ranger. But Ranger didn't sleep. His eyes stayed fixed on the tunnel's deeper darkness, ears twitching as if listening to something only he could hear. And in the quiet that followed, Logan sensed it too, the feeling that the storm outside was not the only thing he'd escaped tonight. Under the earth, beneath the layers of rust and stone, something patient and ancient had stirred the moment he stepped inside. He closed his eyes. He told himself it was nothing. But deep down, for the first time in a long while, Logan felt the faintest shift of fate, like a hand he couldn't see had pulled him here on purpose. The storm outside roared on, but below ground, something had begun. The storm had passed, but dawn arrived bruised and half-hearted, dragging pale light through the mouth of the forgotten tunnel. The cold still clung to everything, stone, metal, even breath. But inside, a fragile warmth lingered from the fire Logan coaxed to life hours earlier. Ranger lay nearby, ears twitching at every drip, every subtle echo that rolled through the old rail passage like the slow exhale of a sleeping giant. Logan sat up, wincing as his ribs reminded him how hard the last week had been. Hunger burned low in his stomach, a hollow, scraping ache that had long ago replaced real appetite. Yet when he looked around the tunnel, the cracked brick, the collapse of old beams, the scattered debris from decades of abandonment, something in him clicked. A memory he hadn't touched in years. The feel of building something, repairing something, watching a broken thing function again. Before the war, before the years of drifting, Logan had worked construction with his father. He remembered sawdust on his forearms, sunlight bouncing off fresh lumber, the comfort of structure. The war had taken those memories and buried them beneath smoke and loss. But here, in this forgotten artery beneath the earth, he felt a faint ember in his chest. A whisper. "You could fix this. You still know how." Ranger nudged him firmly, once, twice, before dropping an old metal canister at his feet. Logan blinked. "You want me to get moving, huh?" The shepherd gave a short huff, tail sweeping the dusty floor. Together, they began. Logan started by clearing the entrance room, pushing aside rotted crates, peeling up tarps stiff from age, and moving broken rail equipment to the walls. Ranger worked instinctively beside him, tugging small boards with his teeth, dragging sticks into a pile, nosing through the dark corners to check for danger. Every so often he paused and glanced back, as if measuring Logan's breathing, the tremble in his hands, the strain in his shoulders. When Logan found a cluster of old wooden planks, Ranger barked once and trotted over, nudging the largest one with his muzzle. Logan laughed softly. "Yeah, that'll work." They patched a cracked section of wall where winter air seeped in like a quiet threat. Logan hammered using a rusted wrench as a makeshift mallet, while Ranger braced his body against the loose beam to keep it steady. It was clumsy, uneven work, but when the final board fit into place, Logan stepped back, chest rising with something he hadn't felt in years: pride. The next task was water. An old maintenance barrel sat tilted against the far wall, half buried in debris. Logan cleared it, scraped away rust, and tested the joints. It wasn't perfect, but it would hold rainwater that dripped from the ventilation shaft above. He rinsed the inside with gravel and charcoal scraped from the fire pit, creating a crude but effective filtration layer. Ranger watched with focused intensity, tilting his head as if memorizing each step. "Don't look at me like that," Logan murmured. "You're the smart one here." Ranger bumped his leg gently, and maybe he was right. Hours passed in quiet, rhythmic work. Logan adjusted heat flow by redirecting warm air from a still-functioning maintenance vent. Ranger stood guard by the dark corridor leading deeper into the tunnel, ears pricked forward. Every few minutes he sniffed the air, then cast a quick glance back at Logan, confirming everything was safe. But then the shaking started. It began with a faint tremor, something small, barely noticeable. Logan brushed it off as winter settling in the old concrete. But Ranger froze. Every muscle in his body went still. Ears pointed sharply toward a side passage, tail stiff. "Ranger, what is it?" The tremor came again. Not violent, not dangerous. More like a pressure shift. Air pushing through narrow ducts, stone adjusting after long disuse. Ranger whined low in his throat. Logan set down the beam he was carrying and followed him to the source. The shepherd's nose pressed against a rusted vent grate. Warm air pulsed faintly against the metal. Logan knelt and touched the grate. Heat, real heat, flowed from somewhere deeper inside. "Well, I'll be damned," he whispered. There's still life in this place. The idea struck him hard and fast. If the tunnel had warmth somewhere inside, maybe it wasn't just shelter. Maybe it could be a home. But the thought triggered something else, something darker. The heat brushing his face reminded him suddenly of fire, a blast wave, a burning tent, a night overseas when everything went wrong. The memory tore through him so fast, he didn't have time to brace. Logan's breath hitched, his fingers curled against the grate. The world tilted, sound thickened, his heart pounded against the walls of his chest. The fire, the screaming, the smell. It all rushed back in a single overwhelming wave. Ranger reacted instantly. He pressed his full weight into Logan's side, nudging him back from the vent, placing his head beneath Logan's trembling hand. Deep pressure therapy, instinctive, trained, and utterly grounding. Logan clutched the dog's fur, trying to breathe. "I'm here," he whispered, though he wasn't sure if he was telling Ranger or begging himself. Slowly, the memory loosened its grip. Ranger leaned harder, steady, unafraid, anchoring Logan to the present. When the shaking in Logan's hands finally eased, Ranger licked the scar across his wrist, the one Logan didn't talk about, and let out a soft, reassuring rumble. "You saved me again," Logan said, voice raw. "Guess that makes us even." Ranger blinked at him, unimpressed, the kind of look that meant, "We're not even until you're standing again." So Logan stood. He wiped sweat from his forehead, steadied his breath, and returned to the work with renewed determination. Ranger followed closely, brushing shoulders. With him each time the echoes in the tunnel grew too loud. By dusk, the entrance chamber looked transformed. Crude shelves lined the walls. A patchwork curtain of canvas hung to block drafts. The fire pit was stone-ringed and stable. The water barrel trickled clean drops. The broken vent now guided warm air into the living space. Logan stood in the middle, staring at what he and Ranger had made. "It's not much," he whispered. Ranger sat beside him, tail sweeping softly. "But it's enough," Logan added. "And it's ours." The shepherd rested his head against Logan's hip, as if confirming the truth of it. For the first time in years, Logan didn't feel like he was drifting. He didn't feel forgotten. He didn't feel empty. He felt anchored. By walls he rebuilt. By warmth he redirected. And by the only friend who had stayed when the world didn't. As night settled into the tunnel, Logan lay beside Ranger near the low, crackling fire. Ranger's breathing was steady. His body curled protectively toward Logan's chest. The tunnel hummed faintly around them, a slow, rhythmic pulse like the heartbeat of something old that wasn't ready to give up. Neither were they. And in that quiet, fragile moment, Logan understood. This place wasn't a refuge by accident. It was a second chance waiting for someone broken enough to see its worth, and he had been that someone. By the third morning, the tunnel no longer felt like a hollow ruin. The air carried a faint warmth that hadn't been there before, drifting through the chamber in slow, whisper-like currents. Logan woke to the sound of Ranger pacing in a tight circle, controlled, deliberate, his nails ticking against the stone floor like a metronome. The shepherd wasn't anxious. He was listening. Logan could always tell the difference. Ranger's ears swept left, then right, then forward again, as if sorting sounds only he could hear. "Something's up," Logan murmured. Ranger stopped pacing, pointed his muzzle toward the darker corridor, branching off beyond the fire's light. Logan followed the gaze, squinting into the faint glow. He hadn't explored deeper yet. He planned to. He just hadn't found the courage. There was something about these tunnels, unnatural stillness mixed with old machinery, that felt like walking into another man's memories. Ranger whined once, soft but insistent, and nudged Logan's knee. All right, Logan said, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Lead the way." They moved slowly down the narrow passage. The temperature shifted with every few steps. Warm pockets, cold bursts, a soft metallic tang on the air. Ranger's tail lowered, not in fear, but in focus. He sniffed the concrete, the pipes, the air itself, stopping once to paw gently at the wall as though urging Logan to understand something he couldn't voice. After 10 minutes, the corridor widened into a forgotten chamber, sealed behind a rusted sliding gate. Logan tugged hard. Metal shrieked open. Behind it lay a cramped maintenance room filled with old gauges, wires stripped bare, and a cracked panel of analog switches. A control board. Faded lettering read, Blue Ridge Line, Sector 3, Ventilation and Steam Regulation. Logan stepped inside, stunned. This shouldn't still be standing. Ranger padded forward, nose twitching. He sniffed a thick black cable hanging from the ceiling, dry, dead, coated in years of dust, then abruptly turned away and barked at a panel near the far wall. Logan knelt beside him. "What is it, boy?" Ranger's nose pressed the metal. Logan touched it too, and jerked his hand back. The panel was warm. Warm meant something still carried power. Somehow. A shiver slid down Logan's spine. Old tunnels like these weren't supposed to breathe. They weren't supposed to pulse with heat like a sleeping creature. But he remembered the vent from yesterday, the one Ranger had led him to, and the strange rhythmic tremors that came and went through the floor. Maybe this place wasn't dying. Maybe it was waking. Ranger barked again, sharper, drawing Logan toward a half-collapsed doorway. Logan pushed through debris and stepped into a cavernous circular chamber he couldn't have imagined even if he tried. A round room, massive brick-lined, pipes arching overhead like ribs curved around a heart. Warm steam curled upward from a pool in the center, shimmering with faint golden light. The floor vibrated ever so slightly under his boots. A heartbeat. That was the only word for it. "This is the core," Logan whispered. "The tunnel's heart." Ranger approached the pool, sniffed the mist, then snapped his head toward a vent shaft overhead. His ears flattened. Logan felt it a second later. A sudden, subtle pressure shift, like something exhaling too fast. "Pressure spike?" Logan muttered. "But from what?" Ranger growled low, not aggressive, but warning. Logan scanned the room. The gauges lining the far wall flickered. Small ticks on the faceplates trembled, rising half a notch. He moved closer, brushing dust away. Steam pressure. Western valve. The needle climbed again, and again. "Not good," Logan whispered. Ranger backed up, hackles raised. He sniffed sharply and barked once, looking up at the northern duct. "You smell it?" Logan asked. "Steam leak? Or something hotter?" Ranger pawed the floor in a fast, urgent rhythm, the same pattern he used whenever danger was real. Logan grabbed a rusted valve wheel near the central pipe. With a grunt, he forced it counterclockwise. Metal groaned. The gauge dipped slightly, settling. "Okay," Logan breathed. "That's one problem down." But the tunnel wasn't done. A faint hiss echoed from the far side of the chamber. Ranger turned immediately, nose high. He trotted toward the corner, sniffed the ground, then let out a sharper bark. Logan crossed the room and saw it, a hairline crack along a lower pipe, releasing a ghost-thin stream of vapor. "Hot steam leak," Logan muttered. "Good catch, buddy." He wrapped a torn jacket sleeve around his hand, used a wrench to tighten the coupling, then sealed the crack with resin he'd collected from a collapsed storage case. Ranger stood guard the whole time, alert and vigilant. When the hiss stopped, Logan stepped back and exhaled. "If you weren't here," he said, "this whole place might have blown a gasket." Ranger lifted his chin proudly. But then Ranger froze again, this time pointing toward a narrow crawl space half hidden behind a fallen beam. Logan had missed it. Ranger hadn't. "You want me to go in there?" Logan asked. Ranger nudged him again, harder. Logan sighed. "All right, let's see what's behind door number 3. He crawled through the tight opening, dust filling his lungs, until the space widened into a secondary chamber. Smaller, darker, colder. Ranger squeezed in beside him, shoulders brushing Logan's arm. A metallic tang hit Logan's nose. Not steam, not rust, gas, not strong, but real. Ranger sneezed, then shoved his head toward an overhead pipe. Logan held up his lighter. A small flame flickered sideways, the air current bending unnaturally. "Gas buildup," Logan whispered. "How the hell did you smell that?" He found the shut-off valve, twisted until it squealed. The air became safer in seconds. Ranger leaned against him in quiet approval. "You're like a damn early warning system," Logan said softly. 6 senses, not 5. They headed back into the heart chamber. Logan sat heavily on a stone ledge, wiping sweat from his brow. Ranger lay beside him, his body pressed warm against Logan's knee. The pool's steam rolled lazily upward, catching light from old emergency bulbs still flickering weakly, painting the chamber in soft gold. Ranger's tail thumped once. "You feel it too, don't you?" Logan whispered. "This place, it's alive somehow." Ranger rested his chin on Logan's foot. Logan looked around the vast circular chamber. The curves, the pipes, the hum beneath them. The place felt ancient but not dead. More like a living thing stitched from bone and metal, forgotten but breathing. "This tunnel needs us," Logan murmured. "Or maybe we need it." Ranger inched closer, his steady presence grounding Logan just as he always did. Logan reached out and scratched between his ears. "We'll keep it alive," he whispered, "one fix at a time." And together, man and dog sat beside the tunnel's beating heart, unaware that the work they began today would eventually save thousands. The 4th day began with a strange silence, thick, humming, and expectant. Logan felt it the moment he woke. Ranger felt it too. The shepherd paced near the entrance, nose pressed low, then high, as if sorting through the layers of scent drifting through the cold morning air. Something was different. Something had changed in the world above. Logan stepped toward the tunnel mouth and placed a hand against the wall. A faint vibration pulsed beneath his palm, steady but sharper than the day before. The heart of the tunnel was no longer waking. It was alert, listening. "Easy," Logan whispered. "Whatever's coming, we face it together." Ranger let out a low, warning rumble. Not fear, just recognition. Logan trusted that sound. It had saved them more times than he could count. They didn't have to wait long. Footsteps approached from the forest outside, light, careful, crunching frost with precision. Not a wanderer, not a threat moving blindly. The rhythm belonged to someone trained to navigate dangerous terrain. A figure appeared at the tunnel's mouth, framed by pale winter light. A young woman in a ranger uniform, her auburn-brown ponytail dusted with frozen mist. She stood tall, lean but sturdy, with the posture of someone who had spent her life outdoors. Her skin was wind-touched, lightly freckled, and her eyes, sharp gray, carried the watchfulness of a person who learned early that nature rewarded anyone who paid attention and punished those who didn't. Ava Hayes. Logan recognized the type instantly, competent, focused, with an undercurrent of empathy. She tried hard not to show. People like her usually became rangers because the wilderness made more sense than people ever did. She scanned the area without fear, shining her flashlight across the rusted rails and collapsed embankment. Then the ground shifted. A soft crack echoed from above, stone giving way. "Above you!" Logan shouted. Ava looked up just in time to see the slab of rock loosen from the hillside, tilting dangerously. Ranger launched forward, grabbing the leg of her thick ranger pants with his teeth, yanking her hard to the left. Ava hit the ground, rolled, and the rock slammed down exactly where she had been standing, scattering dust and shards across the tunnel entrance. For a moment, everything froze. Ava breathing hard, Logan staring in disbelief, Ranger standing vigil over her like a guardian carved from muscle and instinct. Ava pushed herself up, brushing dirt from her uniform. What just happened?" "Ranger saved you," Logan said, still catching his breath. "He hears things we don't, feels them too." Ava's gray eyes softened. She knelt, extending a gloved hand cautiously. "Good boy. You're one hell of a partner, aren't you?" Ranger leaned forward, sniffed her palm, then allowed her to gently scratch behind his ear. Only then did Ava look fully at Logan, and he saw the moment she understood the truth. A homeless veteran standing inside an abandoned rail tunnel shouldn't have looked this steady, this purposeful, or this anchored. Something was different about him, and about the tunnel. "I'm Ava," she said. "Forest Service. We picked up an unusual thermal signature out here. Thought maybe it was a fire hazard or someone trapped." Logan hesitated. "It's just me," he said. "Me and Ranger." Ava studied him, her gaze shifting from the patched walls to the filtered water system, to the faint golden glow drifting from the deeper corridor. "That's not a camp," she murmured. "That's a system." Logan exhaled slowly. It was better to show her than explain. "Follow us," he said. "Careful where you step." Ranger moved ahead, guiding the way with surprising gentleness, occasionally glancing back to ensure Ava kept up. The tunnel grew warmer as they descended into the heart chamber. Ava stopped the moment she stepped inside. Her breath caught. The room glowed softly from the steam pool at its center, light pulsing in slow waves, like the breath of a living creature. The pipes overhead arched like ribs, and the vibration beneath her boots was unmistakable, steady, rhythmic, alive. "What is this?" she whispered. "A place that shouldn't exist," Logan answered. "But it does." Ava stepped farther in, hand brushing the walls. That was when she froze. "Logan," she whispered, "come look at this." He approached, Ranger close at his heel. There, on the brick surface, illuminated by the warm mist, were shallow carvings. Lines, swirls, impressions forming images not drawn by tools, but shaped by time and pressure. Ava brushed her fingers across the grooves. "These weren't made recently," she said. "They're baked into the brick." Logan leaned in. "It wasn't like this when I arrived." Ava traced a shape, one that made her skin prickle. It was a human figure, hunched, holding his head, sitting alone, a posture Logan recognized instantly. "It's you," Ava said softly. Logan's throat tightened. "No, it's just a coincidence." But then Ava moved her hand upward, touching another carving. A dog curled around the figure, protective, alert. Ranger. "It's remembering you," Ava said, her voice trembling with a mixture of awe and something like fear. "Logan, the tunnel is imprinting your memories, your emotions." Logan stepped back, breath unsteady. "That's impossible." Ava's voice dropped to a whisper. "Maybe impossible is exactly what this place is?" The chamber hummed beneath them, as if responding. Ranger's ears shot up. He pressed against Logan's leg, sensing the rising tension. More carvings shimmered into view as the light shifted. A storm cloud spiraling, collapsed beams, a hand reaching for a dog's collar, a trembling flame. "I didn't carve those," Logan said. "I couldn't have." "I know," Ava replied. She wasn't looking at the walls anymore. She was looking at him, with understanding that pierced deeper than he expected. "You've been carrying memories with nowhere to put them. Somehow, this place listened." Ranger let out a quiet, mournful whine, nudging Logan's hand. Logan stroked his head absently, still staring at the walls that whispered stories he never meant to share. Ava approached him gently. "Logan, whatever happened to you, whatever you've lived through, you're not alone anymore, not with him, and not in this place." Logan didn't answer. He couldn't. His past had carved itself into stone without his permission, and Ranger, his last anchor, stood at his side as if reminding him that not all memories were made to break someone. Some were made to rebuild. As they stood in the center of the chamber, the golden light pulsed once, slow, warm, deliberate, as if acknowledging them. The tunnel had witnessed something, and now Ava had witnessed it too. Nothing would be the same. The heart chamber glowed softly under the rising warmth of the steam pool, its gentle pulse reflecting off the walls like living amber. Ava stood with her back to the carvings that had shaken her to the core, her breath unsteady as she processed everything she had just witnessed. Logan lingered near the center of the chamber, elbows resting on his knees, eyes fixed on the rippling water, as though he were afraid to meet her gaze. Ranger sat between them, tail still, ears tracking their silence like a referee in a delicate negotiation neither had asked for. Ava cleared her throat first. "Logan, you know I have to ask, how long have you been down here?" "Long enough," he murmured. "That's not an answer." Logan rubbed the back of his neck, an anxious habit Ava recognized from rescue victims who didn't want to explain their scars. He finally looked up, eyes shadowed but steady. "It wasn't supposed to be this long," he said. "I came down here just to get through one night. Ranger dragged me inside during a storm when He hesitated. Ranger nudged his knee gently, urging him to continue. "When I didn't care if I froze." Ava blinked slowly, absorbing the confession. "You were planning to die." Logan didn't flinch. "I was planning to stop hurting." Ava stepped closer, not out of pity but clarity. "Logan? What happened?" He inhaled sharply as though the memories were shrapnel he had learned to live with but never remove. "It wasn't a big moment. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic," he said. "Just another night after too many nights when the world didn't feel like it had a place for me anymore." Ranger shifted, leaning against Logan's leg, grounding him. "But Ranger," Logan continued, "Ranger wasn't ready to give up. He wouldn't leave me. I guess he knew before I did. Pulled me back from the ledge, literally. Dragged me by my jacket collar until I snapped out of it and got angry enough to want to live." Ava murmured, "That's not just instinct, that's loyalty." Logan smiled faintly, brushing Ranger's fur. "He made me promise that if he stayed alive for me, I'd stay alive for him." Ranger lifted his chin proudly. Ava exhaled, a long, heavy breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Ranger patted toward her, placing his head gently against her hand. His eyes were soft, intelligent, pleading. Ava felt it in her chest like a quiet request. See him. Protect him. "You're asking me to trust them," Ava whispered. Ranger didn't move. He didn't have to. Ava crouched slowly, resting her palm on the shepherd's forehead. "It's like he's telling me something." "He is," Logan said. "He's telling you I'm not the danger here." Ava swallowed hard. "Logan, you know what I'm supposed to do? A thermal anomaly? A hidden shelter? A man living off-grid in a tunnel? My supervisors would have a field day." Logan said nothing. He didn't beg. He didn't argue. He didn't even look afraid. He simply folded his hands and waited, as men do when they've learned the world can take everything from them without asking. Ava turned away, pacing near the wall. The carvings glowed faintly behind her. Logan in a curled silhouette, Ranger wrapped around him, storms etched in spirals above their heads. Memories preserved not for beauty, but for survival. Ava finally spoke. "When I started this job," she said, "I used to think everything broken needed paperwork, a report, a solution. But this..." She swept her hand across the chamber. "This is bigger than rules." She stepped closer to Logan. "Tell me what I'm really looking at." He took a breath. "A place that kept me alive. A place Ranger trusts. A place that listens." She nodded slowly. The word listens didn't sound insane here. It sounded right. "Logan, do you understand what happens if I report this? They'll send engineers, inspectors, shut down crews. They'll tear this whole place apart trying to understand it." "And you?" Logan asked. "What do you think?" Ava hesitated. "I think," she said softly, "that some places aren't meant to be touched by people who don't understand them." For a long moment, the only sound was the heartbeat-like thrum beneath their feet. Ava looked at Ranger again. The shepherd had seated himself squarely between them, chest out, ears alert, expression steady, as if standing guard over something sacred. He stepped toward her and pressed his head gently against her thigh, a gesture so intentional it startled her. "He trusts you," Logan said. "That's rare." Ava knelt and cupped Ranger's face, meeting his amber eyes. "What am I supposed to do, boy? Ignore every rule I swore to follow?" Ranger leaned closer. Ava closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision settle into her bones. It wasn't just about Logan. It wasn't just about the tunnel. It was the knowledge that reporting this would destroy the one thing still holding a broken veteran together and crush the living heartbeat of a place that had done more healing than any system she'd ever worked in. She stood up. "Logan," she said, "I'm not filing a report." He blinked, stunned. "Ava, if you do that, your job—" "The job can wait," she cut in. "Your life? His life?" She gestured to Ranger. "Those can't." Logan stared at her as though she had spoken a language he hadn't heard in years. Belief. Ava offered her hand. "Whatever this place is, whatever it's becoming, I'll protect it. And you." Logan shook her hand, voice low and rough. "Thank you." Ranger barked once, a bright, approving sound that echoed through the chamber. Ava smiled. "That sounded like a vow." Logan nodded. "It is." The golden light pulsed once from the steam pool, as if the tunnel itself agreed. Ava had made her choice, and nothing would ever be the same. In the days that followed Ava's choice, the tunnel seemed to breathe easier, as though it sensed the new alliance forming around its living heart. The gentle hum beneath the stones steadied into a comforting rhythm. Warmth rose along the copper veins with smoother pulses. Even the steam pool emitted a softer glow, reflecting faint gold along the walls. But Logan noticed something else, something he hadn't dared hope for. He felt lighter, not healed, not whole, but lighter, like someone had taken a stone from the pile he carried and placed it on the ground beside him. Ranger sensed it too. The shepherd moved through the tunnels with renewed energy, tail higher, steps quicker, as if he knew change was coming and had been waiting for it longer than any of them. Ava returned 3 days after her promise. She walked into the tunnel with a determined expression and a thick binder tucked beneath one arm. Her hair was loose this time, dark auburn waves brushing her shoulders. She looked less like an officer and more like someone at the beginning of a purpose she hadn't realized she needed. Logan raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Hope," Ava said simply, holding up the binder. Ranger trotted forward, sniffing it eagerly. Ava laughed. "Easy, boy. It's just paper, but important paper." She opened it on a crate that now served as Logan's makeshift table. Inside were sketches, diagrams, handwritten notes, budget estimates, and clippings from sustainable engineering journals. "I started something," Ava said quietly. "A fund, nothing big, private donations only, quiet, discreet. But enough to bring a few people here, people who won't report us, won't exploit this place, and won't judge you for surviving instead of drowning." Logan stared at her. "You did all this for us?" "For them," Ava corrected. "There are thousands of veterans living out of cars, shelters, sidewalks. People like you. People this place could save if we learned from it." Logan's throat tightened. "Ava, why?" She took a breath, eyes softening. "Because the world breaks the wrong people. And because I watched you, Logan. I watched this tunnel listen to you, and I realized some places hear better than humans do." Ranger nudged Ava's hand, and she stroked his head without looking away from Logan. "And because of him," she added softly. "He believes in you. That's enough for me." Logan looked at Ranger, whose amber eyes reflected a quiet, unwavering loyalty. "Okay," he said. "Who are we bringing?" Ava's smile widened. "People who need a second start, and people who can help you build one." The first to arrive was Theo Ramirez, a former structural engineer in his late 40s. Theo had the solid build of a man who spent years climbing scaffolding, broad shoulders, deep tan skin, and forearms marked by small scars from construction accidents. His salt and pepper beard made him look older, but his dark eyes were gentle, tired but gentle. He carried a canvas bag, a thermos, and a quiet anxiety that clung to him like a shadow. He'd been sleeping in his truck before Ava found him. Theo paused at the tunnel entrance, taking in the stone curves and faint glow. "This is something else," he whispered. Logan nodded. "Welcome to the heart." Ranger approached cautiously, sniffing the air around Theo. The man froze. "You okay with dogs?" Logan asked. Theo swallowed. Afghanistan. A bomb dog saved my unit. I just haven't been near one since. Ranger stepped closer and, slowly, deliberately, pressed his head against Theo's thigh. Theo's breath broke. He reached trembling fingers into Ranger's fur. "That's it," Logan said quietly. "He knows." Theo wiped his eyes. "Feels like he does." Next came Marcy Ellington, a volunteer architect in her early 30s. She had curly black hair tied back in a messy bun, round wireframe glasses, and soft cocoa skin. Her clothing was an intentional mixture of thrifted denim, sturdy boots, and a paint-stained jacket. Marcy talked fast, thought faster, and tripped over her own enthusiasm. "This place is alive!" she exclaimed the moment she saw the heart chamber. "I've dreamed of designing a structure that breathes, literally breathes, and now I'm standing inside one. Logan, can I study the airflow, and that steam vent, and the way the copper expands when—" Ranger barked once, startling her. She paused. "Right, slow down, got it." And then came the last group, 3 veterans Ava brought from a shelter downtown. Nate, early 30s, gaunt, blonde buzz cut, hollow eyes, quiet but observant. Reese, late 50s, large, stoic, heavy gray beard, once a medic, now barely speaking. Dylan, 26, wiry, jittery, with tremors from TBI, fearful but trying. Ranger approached them one by one, reading them like pages in a book. He nudged Nate gently, coaxing a faint smile. He leaned against Reese, who stiffened, then slowly rested his hand on the shepherd's back. He lay down at Dylan's feet, calming the tremor in the young man's leg almost instantly. Logan watched, stunned. "Ava, he's doing more for them in seconds than any therapist ever did for me." "I know," she said. "That's why we're here." Within hours, the quiet tunnel turned into something new, something alive in a different way. Theo inspected collapsed beams and murmured ideas. Marcy sketched redesigns on the concrete with chalk. Nate sorted scrap metal into piles. Dylan cleaned old debris with determination. Reese helped Logan brace the weakened wall without speaking a word. Ranger drifted among them, monitoring moods, nudging shaky hands, grounding panic before it fully formed. Every veteran he touched seemed to exhale something they'd been holding for years. At one point, Dylan's breathing quickened as he stared at a fallen support beam, its shape resembling the frame of a helicopter he once escaped. Ranger rushed to him instantly, pressing his weight against Dylan's leg, guiding the young man into a slow rhythm of touch and breath. Dylan whispered, "I'm okay. I'm okay." Ranger licked his hand once and stayed until Dylan's tremor passed. Ava watched the scene with quiet awe. "This is more than therapy," she whispered. "He's hope with fur." Logan nodded. "Told you he's the smartest one here." Marcy wiped tears she pretended were dust. Theo stared at Ranger like watching a miracle he didn't believe he deserved. The tunnel hummed warmer. The carvings on the wall, once showing Logan's pain, shifted in the steam glow. More lines appeared, silhouettes of new figures standing beside him, and behind them. Ranger, tail raised, guiding. Marcy shivered. "It's capturing the community," Logan whispered. "It's recording us. Healing." Ava stood beside him. "Then let's give it something worth remembering." By nightfall, the heart chamber buzzed with soft conversation, shared food, shared silence, shared presence. Theo told Logan, "If we reinforce the central ribs here, we could support at least 4 new rooms." Marcy excitedly sketched additions on the wall. Dylan carefully cleaned copper pipes until they gleamed. Reese stared into the steam pool as though rediscovering the concept of warmth. Ranger walked the perimeter with calm authority. Each time he paused beside a veteran, their shoulders relaxed. A community, small, tattered, fragile, was forming. At the center of it stood Logan, who had once entered this place ready to die, and now watched life bloom around him. And he knew this was only the beginning. He storm rolled in without warning, one of those harsh Appalachian tempests that descended like a living wall of white, Bitter wind tore through the forest above the tunnel, carrying needles of ice sharp enough to sting exposed skin. Inside, the heart chamber pulsed restlessly, steam thumping in uneven patterns as though the tunnel sensed the danger gathering above. Logan tightened the insulation along a newly reinforced vent, while Ranger paced near the entrance, tail lowered, ears pinned forward with unease. The shepherd kept glancing back toward Logan and Ava, with an urgency neither had seen since the night they found the carved memories on the wall. Ava zipped her jacket. "He's picking up something?" Logan frowned. "Weather?" "No," she said softly. "Someone." Ranger barked, sharp, decisive, and bolted toward the main passage. Logan and Ava followed, boots pounding the ground as they reached the entrance chamber. The wind slammed into them the moment they stepped near the tunnel mouth, nearly knocking Ava off balance. Ranger pushed ahead, nose lifted into the blinding snow. Logan shielded his face with one arm. "What do you smell, boy?" Ranger charged into the storm. "Go!" Ava shouted. "He's tracking!" The forest was a chaos of white and sound. Snow hissed through the branches, coating everything in an icy shroud. Logan's breath burned in his chest as he ran. Ranger weaved through trees, leaving a clean trail in the snow. Ava sprinted beside Logan, despite the wind clawing at her jacket. "Where is he taking us?" she yelled above the storm. Logan scanned the terrain. "Old rail access road. There used to be maintenance cabins out here." Ranger suddenly turned sharply right and disappeared behind a thicket. Logan pushed through and froze. There, collapsed beside an overturned snowmobile, was a young man curled in the snow. His jacket was unzipped, his face pale, lips blue, fingers shaking uncontrollably. Ranger pressed urgently against his chest, barking at Logan and Ava as if shouting orders. The young man looked barely 25, maybe younger. He had close-cropped sandy hair, a scattering of freckles across his nose, and a scar that cut through his left eyebrow, fresh, still red. His build was lean, almost too thin, like someone who'd been surviving more than living. Ava knelt beside him. "Logan, he's hypothermic." The young man's eyes fluttered. Can't breathe." "You're okay," Ava whispered. "We've got you." Logan checked his pulse, weak but present. Ranger lay across the man's torso, warming him with his body heat, licking his cheek gently. The young man whispered, "D-dog. Where'd he come from?" Logan didn't waste breath on explanations. "We need to move, now." Ava nodded. "Tunnel's the only safe place. Help me lift him." Together, they pulled him onto Logan's back. Ranger ran ahead, clearing the path, barking rhythmically to guide them through the worst of the wind. As they moved, Logan felt the young man's icy fingers clutch the back of his jacket weakly. "What's your name?" he asked through clenched teeth. "Eli," the young man whispered. "Eli Turner." Ava nearly stumbled. "Turner? There's a missing persons alert for a veteran named Eli Turner, PTSD. Went off grid 3 weeks ago." Logan adjusted his grip. "Let's get him inside first." They burst back into the tunnel moments later, coughing from the sudden warmth. The veterans inside, Nate, Reese, Dylan, rushed forward. Ranger barked orders at them with canine precision, ushering them aside so Logan and Ava could carry Eli to the steam-warmed chamber. Theo hurried to bring blankets. Marcy checked Eli's fingers for frostbite. "Pulse is weak," Ava said, "but we got to him fast." Eli shivered violently as Ranger lay across him again, pushing heat into his body. The shepherd's steady presence seemed to anchor Eli's spiraling mind. His breathing slowed. "You saved me?" Eli whispered hoarsely, staring at Ranger with wide, watery eyes. "I heard him barking, like he was calling for me." Logan set a hand on Eli's shoulder. "He was." Eli blinked up at Logan. "Why?" Logan hesitated before answering softly. "Because you're like us." Eli's eyes filled, and he didn't speak again. He didn't need to. Ranger pressed his nose into Eli's palm, sealing the bond. 2 hours later, as Eli slept safely near the steam pool, Ava stepped into the entrance chamber and turned on her radio. Static crackled against the stone. She inhaled deeply and switched to the protected channel used for emergency reports. "Dispatch, this is Ranger Hayes," she began, voice steady. "Located missing veteran Eli Turner, alive. Severe hypothermia, stabilized. Requesting medical guidance and community assistance." "Copy," came the response. "Where are you?" Ava paused, eyes drifting toward Logan and Ranger. Then she said clearly, "Somewhere safe, somewhere the cold can't reach." There was a long silence on the other end. "Understood. We'll prepare a recovery team at your discretion." Ava turned off the radio. Logan approached quietly. "You didn't tell them." "I told them what they needed to know," Ava said. "Not what would destroy everything." She removed a folded document from her jacket, typed neatly, stamped with a review mark, and signed. "What's that?" Logan asked. "My official report," Ava replied. "A special request to have you recognized as the Historic Tunnel Maintenance and Restoration Lead for the Blue Ridge Line." Logan blinked. "That sounds official." "It is," she said. "And it means you're not trespassing. You're not hiding. You're doing a job that the city can legally acknowledge." Logan didn't speak. He couldn't. The last time, someone handed him a paper with his name on it. It had been a discharge notice. Ava stepped closer. "You saved a man today, Logan. Ranger saved a man today. And Asheville deserves to know the truth. You're not a homeless veteran living underground. You're the one keeping a historic system alive and saving people in the process." Ranger nudged Logan's hand proudly. Ava continued, softer now. "News is already spreading through dispatch. People will talk, but this time, it's good." Logan swallowed hard, overwhelmed. "Logan," Ava said gently, "you're not invisible anymore." He looked at Ranger, steady, loyal, golden-eyed, and whispered, "We did it, boy." Ranger barked once, the sound echoing through the living tunnel like a promise. By nightfall, word had reached Asheville, a veteran saved in a blizzard, a man known only as Logan who found him, a shepherd who refused to give up, a hidden tunnel restored from ruin. The story grew almost mythic before sunrise. People no longer spoke of Logan as the homeless stranger in the woods. They spoke of him as a guardian, a builder, a man who had resurrected a forgotten relic and turned it into a sanctuary. And for the first time in years, Logan felt something he thought he had buried forever. Pride, belonging, a place in the world, a name worth remembering. Spring crept into the Blue Ridge Mountains quietly, softening the edges of winter as though smoothing wrinkles on an old, familiar face. The snow retreated from the pines, the sun rose earlier, and meltwater trickled down the hillsides like silver threads weaving new beginnings. Inside the tunnel, warmth pulsed with steadier breath. The copper veins glowed amber in the early hours, reflecting on the stone walls like sunlight rising underground. Logan stood near the entrance, one hand resting on the old beam he'd reinforced months earlier. Ranger sat beside him, ears turned toward the forest, as if listening to something unseen. The shepherd looked healthier than ever, coated thick, posture proud, eyes bright with purpose. Ava descended the slope toward them, her auburn hair catching the early spring light. She wore a Navy Forest Service field jacket, jeans, and mud-spattered boots. She walked with relaxed confidence now, more like someone returning home than arriving on official duty. "Big day," she said, smiling as she approached. Logan chuckled. "Feels like I'm about to be sentenced." Ava nudged him with her shoulder. "More like promoted." Ranger barked once in agreement. A city vehicle pulled up moments later, delivering 2 representatives from Asheville's Heritage and Ecological Conservation Board. Emily Herron, late 40s, tall and willowy, with streaks of silver in her brown hair and the posture of someone who practiced yoga for balance and diplomacy. Gerald Beck, early 60s, compact build, thick gray mustache, eyes sharp behind square glasses. An engineer by training, the kind who analyzed everything before speaking. They were not the type of people Logan ever expected to see at the mouth of his hidden sanctuary. Emily stepped forward first, offering a warm hand. Logan Hart, she said. "We've heard more about you in the last 3 weeks than in the last decade this tunnel sat on our forgotten registry." Gerald adjusted his glasses and surveyed the structure. "Frankly, we thought this place was unsalvageable. The city logged it as collapse beyond practical restoration. But you," he nodded appreciatively, "you proved us all wrong." Logan felt heat rise in his face. "I just didn't want it falling on anyone's head, that's all." Ranger huffed at the understatement. Emily smiled. "The structural assessments from Theo and the environmental notes from Ava are extraordinary. What you've done here, it's not just repair, Logan. It's preservation, it's innovation, it's community building." Gerald stepped closer. "We'd like to propose something." Ava placed a reassuring hand on Logan's forearm. Emily pulled a folder from her bag and opened it. "Logan, we want to formally recognize this tunnel as a protected technical ecological heritage site, the Blue Ridge Underground Habitat, and we want you to be its first official caretaker." Logan stared at her, stunned. "Caretaker?" "More than that," Gerald said. "Your official title would be Lead Preservation and Operations Steward. Hours flexible, salary included, benefits, housing on site, if you want it, and authority to train other veterans for similar projects." A quiet shiver moved through Logan's chest. Years of being unseen, unnamed, uncounted seemed to crumble inward, like old stone giving way to light. "And Ranger?" Logan asked softly. Emily's expression warmed. "We've drafted a designation for him as well. Honorary K9 of the Blue Ridge Habitat. He'll even get a badge." Ranger wagged his tail with unmistakable pride. Logan blinked several times, unsure whether the air had thinned or his emotions had surged too quickly. "You're giving me a job?" he whispered. "A job," Emily replied. "A home, and recognition for saving lives." Gerald added, "There's talk about a commendation from the mayor's office, given the rescue of Eli Turner. Your action sparked interest from the community. People want to help. They want to visit. They want to learn from what you've built." Logan rubbed a hand over his short beard, overwhelmed. He looked at Ava, who met his gaze with a softness that steadied him. "You deserve this," she whispered. Ranger pressed against Logan's leg, grounding him. Emily handed him the papers. "Welcome to your new life, Logan." He didn't trust himself to speak, so he simply nodded. That afternoon, while Emily and Gerald toured deeper into the tunnel with Theo and Marcy, Logan walked along the renovated passageways, Ranger padding by his side. Soft lights, which the team had carefully installed to protect the ecosystem, glowed along the ribs of the walls. More hands had shaped this place, reinforced it, believed in it. But it had begun with two souls who had arrived broken. Logan knelt beside Ranger, scratching behind his ears. "Look what we did, buddy." Ranger leaned into him, breathing slow and content. Footsteps approached behind them. Ava sat beside Logan, folding her long legs beneath her. Her cheeks were pink from the cool air. Her eyes carried the kind of warmth found only in someone who'd watched another person rise from darkness and was proud. Quietly, fiercely proud. "You okay?" she asked gently. "I don't know what I feel," Logan admitted. "It's been so long since I've had anything like this. A title, a home, a future." Ava reached for his hand, her fingers sliding into his palm with careful tenderness. "You earned every bit of it. You built something that saves people, not just Eli, not just the veterans in this community. You saved yourself too, Logan. That's the hardest thing anyone can do." He exhaled shakily. "I was dead inside when I came here." "I know," she whispered, "but you're not anymore." Ranger stood, circled once, then lay down on their feet, chin resting. Across both their ankles, an unmistakable gesture of approval, almost ceremonial. They both laughed softly. "A blessing from the Guardian," Ava murmured, brushing her thumb across Logan's hand. Outside the tunnel mouth, sunlight broke through the thinning clouds. Early spring light spilled across the forest floor like gold dust. "This is home," Ava said quietly. "For you. For him?" She nodded at Ranger. And if you want, for me too. Logan swallowed, emotion rising like a tide. I want that, more than anything. Ava leaned her forehead against his shoulder, and Logan wrapped an arm around her, feeling, for the first time in decades, something like peace settle into his bones. Spring wind drifted through the entrance, carrying the scent of thawing earth. Logan looked out at the world beyond the tunnel, the world he no longer feared, no longer hid from. Not invisible, not broken, not trapped below ground. A man with purpose, a man with a home, a man loved, a man respected. Ranger nudged Logan's arm, then Ava's, as if urging them to stand. Together, the three of them walked toward the sunlight, the keeper, the captain of hope, and the shepherd who guided them both. The community would expand, other tunnels would be restored, other veterans would find a place to heal. Stories would grow from this underground heart, rippling through Asheville and far beyond. But for now, at the threshold between darkness and dawn, Logan stepped fully into the life he'd rebuilt with his own hands, and the world finally stepped forward to meet him. In the end, Logan's journey was never just about a forgotten tunnel or a man trying to survive another winter. It was about what happens when the broken choose to rise, when the lost choose to listen, and when a community chooses to see the invisible. A veteran who once slept in shadows became the keeper of a place that healed not only him, but everyone who walked through its quiet heart. And standing beside him, steady as truth, was Ranger, the shepherd who understood pain, loyalty, and redemption better than any human words could say. The Blue Ridge underground habitat became more than a refuge. It became proof that hope grows strongest in hidden places. Strangers became family. Wounds became wisdom. A single act of mercy in a winter storm became the spark that restored an entire community's belief in one another. And through it all, Logan learned that the world still holds room for second beginnings. If we dare to take the first small step toward the light. Some miracles don't thunder from the sky. They rise quietly in the hands of ordinary people who refuse to stop loving. Logan's story reminds us that God often works through compassion, through loyalty, and sometimes through a dog who simply won't give up on you. If this journey touched your heart, take a moment to share it with someone who needs hope today. Comment below where you're watching from, and leave a prayer for veterans and anyone fighting their silent battles. And if you believe in stories that heal, inspire, and lift the weary, please like, share, and subscribe. May God bless you and your loved ones with peace, warmth, and a miracle of your own.